I don't even consider myself a sailor. I consider myself more a motorcyclist. I got back from a tour of South America in 2016. I couldn't do without a bike. I'd sold my bike illegally in Argentina and came back to the UK, bought another bike, and then I was looking for my next adventure and couldn't really find anywhere I wanted to go. Then a friend of mine decided he wanted to go touring northern France on a bicycle. And I was like, sure, why not? It's 2 wheels, it's all good. We do that, cross from Portsmouth somewhere to somewhere in northern France, and on the second day we were already 80 kilometers in. 30-something degree heat. I stopped for a break and the sweat was just pouring off me. I look up, I'm along the River Loire, and there's these boats that are just going along. They'd unstepped their masts, just cruising gently at 3 knots. Gin and tonic in one hand, newspaper in the other, and I thought, well, that looks like a good way to travel. Maybe I ought to try that. And that's how I decided that I wanted to have a boat anyway, and go sailing more on sort of the open seas. Prior to that, I'd already done a bit of sailing on lakes. I'm well versed in capsizing laser dinghies. I've never sailed an Optimist or anything like that though. But from a laser, the step up to a larger boat was pretty simple, really. I don't know, it's difficult. It's an old boat with old sails, and normally she likes a good bit of wind to actually get going. So, at an interesting time in Greece, but some of the sailing there in springtime was actually pretty good, even going into the wind. People say, oh, catamarans don't like going into the wind, and that's true. But in Greece I had this one great sail. I had about 20 knots of wind. The sea was sheltered from an island, and so I was able to fly along at 7.5 knots or so, and that was a good sail. But in terms of a general area, so far in my limited experience of just being in the Mediterranean, probably the Balearics. Well, I've had a bit of fun on the boat. Sailing from Menorca to Sardinia. It was an interesting adventure. I left Mahon in the middle of a thunderstorm. 27 knot winds or something like that, but all the seas were on sort of the starboard quarter, so I thought, perfect, the boat will fly along in those conditions, be able to go 7.5, 8 knots or so. And it was fine. I was lying down, I was comfortable, and then all of a sudden my autopilot started beeping. I had a look down and it said drive failure. So I'm like, okay, what's all that about? Turn it off, turn it back on, and it was working again. Then it failed again. On this boat, the steering is all hydraulic. So I decided to have a look at the hydraulic rams and discovered that one was leaking. So I topped up with some fluid, and all was well again for another hour or two, and then that fluid had obviously leaked out. I topped up again. The same thing happened again, and eventually I had to completely turn that steering ram off. So I thought about hand steering, but I'm like, I've still got a day to go. So instead I took the sails down, started the engine, and the autopilot was much happier with that. But even though I'd isolated one of the hydraulic rams, some fluid would still flow through there, so I was constantly losing fluid, and it just became a battle of topping up until I got to Calaforte in Sardinia, where I eventually just lost all steering altogether about 500 meters from the marina. Fortunately, this boat has a single engine and what's called a sonic drive leg, and that sort of pivots 20 degrees either side, so I was able to steer with that and do a controlled crash into the dock at about half a knot or something. It was a bit of fun. It was the first time really that anything like that had happened on the boat. Whilst it was all going on, I didn't really feel that I was in any danger or anything. I felt on top of the situation, and I could always manage somehow, even if I had to sit up and hand steer, so it wasn't too much of an issue for me. I hate DIY type things on board. If you're just sailing a boat, you probably don't do any of that, but living on the boat, there's sanding and painting and all this kind of work, and I hate that. I enjoy installing new equipment or setting the sails on a reach, lying back and just taking it in. I can't think of anywhere I really want to stop, get the boat there, stay there for years on end. So at the moment it's going to be a passage to Madeira, to the Canaries, onto the Caribbean, and then from there, who knows, through the Panama Canal, around to French Polynesia, and I guess I'll just take it from there. The boat is my home, so I don't have a house anywhere else. I don't really have much of an address or anything in the UK, so I'm fortunate enough that I get to travel around with it and sail about the world, really.